artist and body piercer, Roscoe Johnson. At Johnson Tattoo, there are 2 artists available at all times and a 3rd one apprenticing. We offer professional, safe, and artistic tattooing and body piercing at reasonable prices. We can work with your idea or devise custom solutions for you. Loyal clients love Johnson Tattoo Studio because we have prices that working people can afford and a down-to-earth atmosphere without blaring music, skateboard ramps, or reality show drama. We're approachable, not snobs or trendy body art twits, and we back up our work with a free touch-up policy. Johnson Tattoo is licensed by the state and county health departments. We're located at 25119 Ecorse Road in Taylor, Michigan, between Telegraph and Beach Daily, toward the Detroit Metro Airport. We're open Wednesday through Sunday from 1 to 9 p.m. You can find us at johnsontat.com or call 313-292-0534. That's 313-292-0534.
Who owns your body? God, the government, someone you've never heard of? Bibte's philosophy is that your body belongs to you. You should be able to decide what happens to your body after you die, and you should realize the financial benefit, while you're alive, of whatever use is made of your body after you die. But currently the law is rigged, so that governments or murky networks of brokers lay claim to profit from the sale of your mortal remains. Neither you nor your family profit from these deals, often worth tens of thousands. More and more often, remains are simply taken without any authorization by the deceased or family members. The Bibte solution is to change the law, to make it possible for you to sell your remains right now while you're alive, and to take that money out of the hands of governments, brokers, and thieves, and put it in your pocket now while you are alive. Bibte, because your body belongs to you. www.bibte.com or search Facebook for Bibte. BYBBTY, because your body belongs to you.
Welcome back to The Invisible Hand. And now here's more from our guest, James Evan Pilato. Okay, so let's get into food world order.
Absolutely.
Just taking a glance at it, I assume that your intention in doing this is really to talk about the corporate food monopoly that's forming in the United States and globally that is attempting to take over the entire production of food from seed to packaging and actually prevent regular people from being able to produce their own food. They're trying to wipe out small farmers and farmers markets and even people with their little gardens at home. And trying to force everyone to consume food that results from genetically modified animals and vegetables.
Well, and that's pretty much the good basic rundown on it. And again, just even briefly, the title that I got, which I'm proud of. I like it. I find much like Media Monarchy, it's fairly descriptive and original sounding. But it was something that in doing the live Media Monarchy radio show, I think it was a phrase that I said or that I came up with live on the air, and I know when I got home that day from the show, it was like, Food World Order, I like that. And in I think literally that afternoon registered the domain name and then started, the separate blog. For me, it's been something, that is thanks in no small part to my girlfriend. I am not, and have never really been the picture of model health. I'm not horrible. I couldn't tell you the last time I've had fast food or anything like that. But, I eat microwave pizzas and I smoke cigarettes and drink beer and drink a lot of coffee and things like that. But since I've lived in Portland, I work for basically a small chain of not entirely organic, but organic local grocery stores. And I don't typically mention, the name just because in a way where it's like, I don't want them to have to be associated with me running around saying, hey, I work for da-da-da.
Right.
But it's, if you're from this area, I can say, well, I work for the friendliest store in town, and you pretty much know what I'm talking about. And we compete with, the Whole Foods and Trader Joe's and some of those other kind of stores. But we're, again, independently owned. There's only, 10, I think, locations only in Oregon. And, as far as the mission statement goes, they're only going to ever be in Oregon. But working at a place like that, and being surrounded by local food, organic food, small farmers and small businesses. Mm-hmm. Being surrounded by that, really started to have an effect on me. And again, my girlfriend being, much more interested and excited about food. We also get something called Organics to You here in town, which is a service that, sort of as often as you may need it, I guess, depending on how big your family may be, you get a box of local, in-season, organic food. And we actually just got our box yesterday. And it's things like that that make me really excited in a way about living in a city like Portland. Because, again, like I said, I'm from small town West Virginia, which meant you're going to shop at Walmart or Kroger. And I think even the one little independent grocery store that used to be in town is, of course, I don't think even there anymore. But living in a city where you have the opportunity, and I think Portland is kind of special in that way, that it's not like Manhattan or Chicago or L.A., that hopefully, as things seem to fall apart, at least economically, things are going to have to come back to a more community-based level. And, most of the folks say, whether that's, Food Inc. or Michael Pollan and Omnivore's Dilemma or Eric Schlosser and Fast Food Nation, a lot of those guys will all even say that, maybe even more important than eating organic is eating and buying local, to make sure that can be built up. So it's basically something that since I've lived here and work at the store and have tried to become more conscious, like I said, I'll be the first to tell you I'm not the picture of health. And if anything, and probably much more so than media monarchy, foodworldorder.com is more even an education for myself. Whereas, with something like media monarchy, yes, I'm fairly well versed in, 9/11 or JFK and all the other topics that we go over. But Food World Order has really kind of been, educational for me to kind of make myself become more, excited and involved and just partaking of real local food.
Right. I mean, I think that I can sort of relate to what you're saying about, that you're not the picture of perfect health. And I understand feeling almost guilty about talking about this when you're no real example to anyone. But the thing is, I think that the habits, the normal human habits that most people have that might have a negative effect on your health, people have had those for a long time. And not only that, but things like just, eating meat and cheese, having a hamburger or something is not something that should be abnormal or bad for your health. I think as time has gone on, those things have become detrimental to your health because of the type of food we're eating, and not just, it's like, here's my point. It's just, we are all bombarded with all sorts of messages. On the one hand, you get, the McDonald's ad on TV telling you to buy their hamburger. And then on the other hand, you've got, messages from nonprofit foundations and even messages you get at school and things like that, making you feel guilty about your lifestyle and that, you're killing yourself, you're killing your children with the food you're giving them. And, I think we all sort of walk around with this feeling that there's something wrong with us because of the way we live, the fact that we eat food and and drink beverages. We all just feel bad about that. And it's like, no, you shouldn't have to feel bad about eating normal food. The problem is that the normal food is no longer normal. Exactly. And, so go ahead and just define organic for us a little bit. What does something have to be in order to be organic?
Well, I think that, that gets into some of the USDA, labeling and things, which, that opens up that whole other world of like, oh, yeah, do I trust the FDA and USDA? But it basically means, food that hasn't been grown using, chemical pesticides and it has not been genetically modified. So when you're looking at products, what you want to see is there's a specific logo that it'll have on there that is the USDA, certified organic logo. Now, the thing that's actually on the top of foodworldorder.com as we speak right now is an article from Alternet saying Newman's Own exploiting organic labeling loophole, where basically, and of course they're not the only one. I think it's just probably more disappointing that a company like Newman's Own would be doing this, putting the word organic into your title So again, kind of misdirecting and tricking people and using these words. But then when you look for that specific, label, it may not be there. So you name your company, Newman's Own Organics, and people think that it's organic. Mm-hmm. It may have, organic ingredients. And again, it's probably a whole lot better than, going through McDonald's. That's easy to say. But I think what we've seen, and as I think, again, the oligarchs have seen people's interest in saying, hey, I think our food and water might be poison. I'm going to take, more of an active role in figuring out what we're eating and, becoming more proactive. That any time, and again, whether this is in politics or any kind of situation, when they see a movement away from, the herd, for lack of a better term, they're ready in a way for, if as soon as you want to get outside the box, they've got another box that you're going to step into. So even, unfortunately, a lot of the products, at the store that, again, better than average, a lot of those, as you start to look at the labels or do a little bit of research, you'll see it's like, oh, that company, Santa Cruz or Knudsen, they got bought by Smuckers, or a lot of that kind of situation. So again, they'll keep the logo and they'll keep the label the same. But if you look at the fine print, you'll see it's like, this is owned by Kraft, or you're owned by Procter & Gamble, or the same kind of big multinational corporations. Mm-hmm. That's something, and you mentioned something about a beer, which that's something, again, I think that's kind of great about Portland. I love being able to buy beer that's made here.
Right.
That coming from small town West Virginia, as the years have gone by, definitely a lot more smaller craft breweries have popped up. But again, you're going to walk into the corner store, you're looking at Budweiser.
You said people are turning to organics because they're thinking that the regular food in the supermarket is killing them, and I think that you're right. I think it started off, a lot of it with just had a certain cachet to it. It was kind of attractive to yuppies. To make them look like they're eating a finer, a higher, more highbrow level of food than the other people. But as people discover what's actually going on in food production, they realize that it literally is killing and sterilizing you. And I'm sure you know all about this, so go ahead and tell us a little bit about, let's first talk about genetically modified fruit, vegetables, and grain. Most of these seeds being controlled by a corporation called Monsanto. And from what I know, they've patented their genetically modified seeds, so they actually force the farmers who grow plants with these seeds to buy the seeds new every year. It's illegal for them to save some of the seeds for planting the next year or to harvest seeds from the actual crops to plant next year. And then Monsanto actually goes around entrapping farmers into breaking these rules, and then they sue them for millions of dollars. So there's that evil aspect to this corporation where they're actually trying to push all of these small farmers out of the market and take over. And
well,
so
and it's not.
Go ahead.
And it's not even the fact that that they won't let you grow hang on to the seeds and grow them again. They've been engineered to where they won't grow again.
Right.
They'll only work once, so you have to go back to them that next year, which, for me, again, something going fundamentally against the way humans have lived and farmed and eaten on Earth for millennia has now been subsumed into this corporate behemoth, which, like you said, I think one of the more famous cases is some of these seeds from someone else's farm, or I think it was maybe even a truck driving by, blew into a farmer's land, and he was sued and I think ultimately lost. Monsanto saying, oh, well, you stole our seeds.
Right.
It's like, no, your poison seeds blew into my field, and then I couldn't do anything about it.
Well, that's what makes copywriting a seed so ridiculous, because, you can't control what happens in nature and how plants propagate and reproduce,
And it's, and again, these are the kind of things that make you, hold your head and just kind of, in a way you almost have to be in awe at the kind of evil genius of a lot of it. But these are the things I think that people have started to discover. And yes, it did start out with more of just kind of a trendy thing. And I can still see a lot of, different trends within health food, that people will get into, and suddenly, everybody's into coconut water and we can't keep enough coconut water on the shelf. you know, and I'm not saying these things are bad, but there's definitely the cachet of, hey, this is, you know, the hot new thing.
But to get back into the seeds being genetically modified so that they can't reproduce, there's that going on. They're also this is how they started GMOing, is that Monsanto produces Roundup, which is the pesticide that almost everyone uses, and they discovered a way to genetically modify the seeds so that the plant will be